Dale, how are you today?
I'm good. And you?
I'm good. I'm well.
Janice, and Dale, how are y'all?
How are you
Good.
doing, Kevin?
Doing
I'm
fine.
good, Kevin.
I spoke to y'all because y'all are the only ones I can see. Oh, man.
Mhm. Okay, great. Right. And he's still out at what? Thelma Barker, is he? Nope. Well, you know what? Yes, I do. It's in the car. Go get it. Yes, I do. Yeah, I got some that I can put in my ears. Yeah, they are. I was hoping they'd be out, but I don't know. Thank you. Okay, great. Oh gosh. I'm probably gonna need your others because this one connect up in here and I'm trying to charge my, yeah. I thought it had the little round, yeah, end tip, yeah. Now these are ours to keep, right? Or not? Okay. can't hear anything. I'm gonna do a test trial. Can you hear me?
Can you
Okay.
can you hear me over Teams?
Now I can.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I didn't see Dr. Williams on. I'm gonna give me something to drink and I'm gonna be right back. Bell is on, so you may have to take that. It's 3 o'clock. Are y'all ready to get started? Or you need a minute, Corey? Okay. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Jackson-Madison County Policy Committee meeting. We have here in the boardroom myself, Chair Janice Hampton. Online, we have Policy Committee member Kevin Alexander and Attorney Dale Thomas. He's by way online listening in. In the boardroom, we also have IT, Mr. Ashley Blair and Janet Stack. I would like to tell everyone that since we are still under this COVID-19, we're still being designated by the outlines of our governor. And so as we move forward, we will keep this in mind. If there's any questions that you may have, you may later send it by email to me or any of the policy committee members. The first policy that we would take in consideration is policy 2.201. And this is the line item transfer authority. And before we move with this, I would like to say this policy meeting is just for discussion of these particular policies only and others. After which date, if there is some concerns, after we receive emails or give attention to other things, then certainly we will meet back in regards to these policies for any updates, any line item deletions, or anything to that particular point? Okay, Attorney Thomas, I don't see that Dr. Vivian Williams is online, so I believe that you would have complete leeway in all of the policies that's presented here today.
On the line item transfer policy, we're actually going to be meeting with the county about some of these type items later this week. And that line item transfer policy that you've referenced is a policy that is pretty much identical to the model TSBA policy and is supported by current law. And I don't really see at this point any need to change it, but after this meeting later this week with county, we might need to discuss this one some more.
Okay, all right. So we know that with this policy 2.201, as Del Thomas has stated, I think we just had a little brief moment of notation to say that this meeting is being recorded and or transcribed. So everyone may not have heard what he stated. This is just going in line with the TSBA policy, and we will have further discussion on this a little bit later. The next policy is called the Crisis Management Policy. And this policy is policy 3.203. Okay, Attorney Thomas, you want to address this?
I'm not sure what we're looking at, except that I know with the COVID-19 crisis, again, this is pretty much in line with the TSBA policy, and it allows principals to put in place a plan for crisis at their individual buildings. And I know that the district central office is talking about a overall plan as well. And just from looking at it, I didn't see anything in this policy that needs to be revised or changed at this point, unless someone had some specific questions about it.
Okay, I would like to address this. I had talked to Superintendent Washington, who is now in the boardroom, concerning local crisis. Basically, we really now at this time do not have a national policy as it relates to this pandemic, but sometimes we have to take local control over any epidemic or crisis in our district. Knowing what has taken place with this pandemic, I had brought up the issue of a question. What if we had an outbreak of measles, rubella, or anything else that may be viral, which would cause our students to be displaced, just as this epidemic? Where would we go as it relates to a policy? We have nothing in place locally to state this. To my understanding, there's nothing in place statewide to look at, due to the fact that we don't have anything under the national policy. So I talked to Superintendent Washington, and he had given some ideas of how we could possibly manage this through the EMA and by way of our mayor's office and the Jackson-Madison County Health Department if needed. But I don't think that we should take this lightly, because something of this nature could be coming or could exist, and how would it affect our district? We should have something to refer to as it relates to how we would proceed with this particular crisis. So at this time, I'm going to allow Superintendent Washington to give any feedback, if he has any, regarding particular crisis policy.
Yes, when Ms. Hampton approached me with that question, I immediately contacted the EMA director, Jason Moore, about the same, and he agreed that we needed to update our emergency policy for the county. That policy is about 670 pages in depth right now, with some appendices that reach over 500 pages. So I didn't print it, but it is there, and it does address outbreaks, but not to the extent of this. So he said, honestly, that his whole policy would have to be rewritten at the county level, and the state was doing the same, and it would have more involvement from the health department than it had before, because we had never seen anything like this. So as you know, each morning I'm on a call with the city mayor, the county mayor, the health department, the hospital, JA, EMA, and several others, and we discuss our response, or the response to the pandemic, and what we need to adjust daily as it continues to evolve. And as we continue to get directions from the national and state level, we're going to incorporate all these things that we've learned into a quote unquote emergency operation plan, which would then dictate us developing more policies to coincide with that plan. So at this point, we're not at a point where we need to start writing policies yet, or adjusting policies. But as this evolves, we're making learned responses. We're making information for what we've done, what works, what doesn't work, as we respond to pandemics like this. As it applies to schools, of course, the first thought is virtual learning and things of that nature. And we might get there as a part of that policy. But right now, we're focused on getting through this situation as it is, learning from it, and developing policies both at the EMA level and at the district level, and how they can work together to make sure that we can respond as quickly and as best as possible to these situations. Remember, we haven't even started school back yet, so we have a lot to learn before then. And when we get back into school, it's going to be some trial and error until we find the best model for us. So there's going to be many things out there that's going to be practiced, but we have to find out what works for Jackson-Madison County School District as it pertains to responding to these types of situations, which is very, very new to all of us. So we're working at it, but at the same time, we're not ready to put anything into print yet, because we're not at that point yet. But we are aware and working towards getting things that we can have as a SOP, our standard operation procedures, for situations like this. That's where we are right now, and it's being developed as we speak based on the outcomes of the things that we're doing. But the real deal for schools will be when we start, and what that looks like, and how we are effectively able to educate students given some of the challenges that we face in our district.
Okay, so did I hear you state that at this present time, as it relates to this COVID-19, we have nothing in place?
No,
Okay,
no,
and
we don't have
so,
anything in place right now as far as a pandemic like this.
okay, so it proposes a question that a parent had asked me in regards to their children entering back into the school district. Will they be tested for COVID-19? Will
I've al-
staff be tested for COVID-19? And if so, how would that operate if anything is in place right now?
Right. So I put that question to the health department a couple weeks ago, as far as testing. And as you know, a test is only good for that day. So you can get tested and tomorrow come in contact with someone and be infected, within, the next day. So it's just a matter of the monitoring and testing. I can't say I put it to the health department. They push back on me. So if we started in July, knowing school starts in August, who's to say that someone that got tested negatively in mid-July wouldn't be positive by August? It'd be like you'd have to test every day.
Correct.
So we have to look at how we go about school reentry. Is not a lost thought. We're just not there yet. Similar to what they're doing at medical facilities as they start to let people come in to visit people. Now you can at least have one visitor, I believe, coming up soon, and they'll be screened. They wouldn't necessarily be tested, where you have to at least check your temperature and things of that nature. So I think screening may be more feasible right off, but I have already posed it to the health department about what we do to have students re-enter school again. What is the safest way to go about it? What is the way they can assure parents as best we can that the school, that their children are in a safe environment, and assure our teachers they're in a safe environment, and administrators, because some of them may have underlying health conditions to consider. So there's just a lot to consider when you talk about not necessarily people who are symptomatic, but asymptomatic, and those that they come in contact that may have underlying health conditions. You know, a
Okay.
student can go home and take it to their grandparent that has underlying health condition, or, you know, take it home. A teacher could take it home to their husband or spouse or wife, you know, whichever way it goes. So there's just a lot to consider as we enter schools. How will buses look if we got to still socially distance? How will cafeterias look if we still got to socially distance? You know, all those things have to be considered as we move forward nationally with public education.
Okay. So on policy 3.203, as Superintendent Washington has given an update concerning this, and knowing that things will be put into perspective, but nothing has been stated at this time. We will further discuss this before school is open, hopefully that we will give you more information on how to just begin to re-enter the school year, and what we can do as a particular district in order to help gain control of whatever's needed.
Hey, Janice,
Yes.
I was just gonna say on this policy, to me, this wouldn't even be the policy that would direct us as far as, because this is for individual schools, giving the principal individual ownership of his school to deal with a crisis there. I think this is more broad, that would have to be under its own policy. I think more is what Ray was probably getting at anyway.
Right.
Yeah, this is what we had mentioned, but while we was on this policy, I had just wanted to bring up what he and I had discussed locally. And since we didn't have an agenda for today, this is just basically open discussion.
Okay.
And so we know that this particular policy or crisis management will not flow into what we just previously discussed. We had discussed about developing a new policy once things are in place. So thank you, Kevin. But I'm glad you brought that up so that we could have that cleared before we moved on. Okay, the next policy is policy 4.301, dealing with interscholastic athletics. And I see that Aaron Massey is on. But before we do this, we will have Dale Thomas or either Superintendent Washington to actually give us an update on this particular one.
I can talk about it and Dale can. This policy question came up as a result of a discussion with a parent who currently homeschools, and their a child participates in athletics within our school district, which is within policy, but they have to participate within their zone school. So the question was, since we're an open enrollment school and other students have the opportunity to enroll in other schools, why couldn't them as homeschool parents be able to, quote unquote, play sports in the school of their choice, given we give the opportunity for parents and students to choose schools based on openings and availability? All right.
Okay.
So the first part is open enrollment is based on availability of spots at that school after zones are taken care of. And so then that rolls into the question about athletics. Is that just a free-for-all where people can all decide, well, you know, all our kids are pretty good at a sport, let's just go to one school? Does that limit opportunities for the student in that school? And is that really fair to all concerned in the first place? So that's the true question. Should we open our sports up just as we do our schools to open enrollment for homeschoolers?
Okay. AJ, does this answer your question, or do you need some more feedback on it? Okay. AJ, does this answer your question, or did you need some more feedback on this?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So as regards to policy 4.301, open discussion concerning homeschool students and their involvement with the athletics program. Um, we will review this at a later time. If there's any questions or concerns, certainly you can have emails sent in and we will address it further.
Ms. Hampton,
Yes,
can I just add one thing that I think is an issue? Is
okay,
the TSSAA for a home school student to participate in a public school sport, they have to make application by August 15 to participate in that school year. And what I don't know, and I think someone needs to, because if they make application on an open enrollment basis on August 15, let's say they want to apply for basketball at Madison, then the way I read it, if there's not a position available or they don't make the team for whatever reason, the TSSAA rules say that eligibility shall be established at the first member school the homeschool athlete decides to participate. So one thing we need to figure out is if they apply for an open enrollment position, does that then foreclose if they don't qualify for that open enrollment position? Does that foreclose them the opportunity to then apply for a position in somewhere else in the school to participate in athletics? And under the TSSAA rules, I can anticipate that would be a statement that they might say, but we probably need to check with TSSAA. And Ray may have something he can add to that as well.
So Mr. Gilmer has been working with me on this, and that's something that I'll make sure that we clarify that. In other words, you're saying if you try out for basketball at Madison and don't make it, could you try out at Northside to see if you could make it?
And I don't think you can.
Yeah,
And
based on what you just read.
Yeah, not only can you not try out, so you got to make application by August 15.
Right. So you declare.
Let's say you apply August 15 for basketball. The basketball tryouts, I don't know when they would be, but the deadline for applying for another school may pass before you even get a chance to know whether you're going to make the Madison team.
Right.
So
basically, you got to declare by August 15th which school as a homeschooler you're going to be trying out for.
Yeah. And that even applies for spring sports.
Right.
You've got to make that application by August 15, even for spring sports.
Right. You have to declare what school you're trying to move to. And that will play into the decisions.
Chairman Hampton.
yes.
I got a question. So listen to what Ray said at first when he was going over. Do we allow, like if you're homeschooled, do we allow you to pick whatever school you want to play sports at? We don't, because I don't think we should do that. First of all,
we currently do not, and that was the question of a homeschool parent. You have to go where you're zoned for to play sports. But the question was, since we're an open enrollment school, why can't I open enroll or declare at a different school that I'm not zoned for to play a sport? Since other students can open enroll to other schools, why can't I, as a homeschooler, quote unquote, open enroll for athletics?
But they're open enrolling for the academic side of it. The sports is just extracurricular.
Well,
that is my whole, because if you're a homeschooler and you can put to play sports anywhere. I mean, that could bring coaches starting to recruit players.
I think the point is people, you say academics is first, but people sometimes, a lot of times, many times, enroll based on sports.
So, I was just making sure I understood.
I'm just gonna laugh with you right now. I'm gonna laugh with you on that one.
Right.
Mr. Tim Gilmer, he's on, and if he has anything to say at this time, then certainly, we would like to hear from him.
Good. Yeah, I didn't know he was in here.
Mr. Gilmer.
Yes, Miss. Yes,
Okay.
Miss Hampton. I'm on.
Okay. Would you like to have something to say in regards to this particular policy?
Yes, ma'am. I have been in contact, as Mr. Washington said. He and I have worked on this, and Attorney Thompson this morning reached out to me and asked me some questions about it. The whole thing is ever since I've been in the district, I've been told that homeschool students must play athletics at the school they're zoned for. I've never seen it in writing. I've never seen a policy on it. I just know that that's what we've always done as long as I've been in Jackson-Madison County. And I could see it opening up some very unique things. As we said, you got to be just any homeschool's got to apply by August the 15th. But, how would we determine if that student is, Madison keeps being brought up, but how would we determine if a student wants to play sports at Madison? How would that student go through that process? Would he go through open enrollment for a seat that he would not be taking up, but he would be taking up athletic spots? So there's a lot of things to it there, but the TSSAA, they don't care. They don't care what we do with homeschoolers as long as we follow every other rule. So if a student goes and establishes eligibility at any school as a freshman, that's their home eligibility school when you follow the rules there. But I guess at some point, somebody decided this is the way we're going to do it in Madison County, and this is how we've been doing it. And I certainly understand why. If I was a coach at Madison, I would have some questions about this because there's some other schools that could have some advantages about getting homeschool students, and they can't because they're not a zone school. So several issues, if you're going to look at changing that needs to be looked at. It's not a simple cut and dry procedure.
Okay. Anyone else that may have something to say after Mr. Gilmer's comments? Okay, if not, we move on. So with policy 4.301, interscholastic athletics, we will have this reviewed and more information will be given back at the next policy committee meeting. The next policy is 5.400, and this is concerning personnel health examination and communicable diseases. I don't know if it's you, Mr. Washington, or Dale, that will be addressing this particular policy.
I believe this policy was pulled as a part of the general discussion about pandemic response and policies around communicable diseases. So I believe all the policies related to that question were pulled, and it falls into the same category that all these things will be updated over a period of time as we learn more about how we need to respond to these situations. So we just pulled several policies related to that question.
Yes, okay, because I note that the last issue date was in 2012 in regards to such, okay?
Yeah, and at worst case, we'll just update this policy, but knowing that there'd be a broader policy when it comes to pandemic response at some point.
Okay. Kevin, do you have any comments that you want to make regarding this one?
No, not at this. No.
Okay. All right. So regarding policy 5.400, we will bring back and possibly updated information will be given to us at that time. Policy 5.401, and this is what I'm going to do because we still have one in similarity. Policy 6.404. One is for staff, I do believe, and the other one may be for students. So we're just going to combine these two together and address these two since they are in similarity.
What was that second one, Janice?
The second policy is 6.404, and this is the acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS, and this is 5.401. And the other one is policy 6.404, which just states acquired immune deficiency syndrome. One addresses the employees and the other one addresses the students. So okay. I don't know if Superintendent Washington or Attorney Dale Thomas will speak to these particular policies?
Ms. Hampton,
Yes.
my thought, I think this sort of falls in the same category that Ray just mentioned. And that
Okay.
is that it was, I think these were pulled under the heading of what do we do with communicable diseases? And we have these policies on AIDS, and we have the policy on hepatitis, and we have them for students and for staff. And then we have the communicable disease policy for students and staff. And I believe, Ray, you may correct me, but I believe these were all pulled just as part of the overall general discussion about what do we do regarding COVID-19.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We pulled all related policies to make sure that we were covering all bases, but knowing that we'd have to generate a different response policy to situations like we're currently facing.
Okay. So you're saying, Attorney Thomas, that in regards to policies 5.401 and 6.404, that it would possibly fall into the communicable disease category? And will we work towards putting these policies with this past policy 5.400?
But I think they sort of fall under that general category. And what I would think is that we look at, we sort of look at what we've done with these particular diseases, and it may help us craft along with whatever the state tells us on what we do with COVID-19. Then perhaps by the time we get some input from the state, and the local health department and so forth, that we'll be able to pull together a policy and maybe also update these other policies that are sort of similar. If nothing else, may just change the issue date and update them.
Okay. Well, let's discuss this policy 5.402, because I believe this would fall under the same category. This is hepatitis B, HBV.
And I think you're right. That falls all within that general concept of how are we dealing with communicable diseases.
Okay, so this particular policy, 5.402, it would be updated and more information would be given under this, for this particular policy, under the communicable disease policy. Kevin, did you have anything that you wanted to state during this time?
No.
Okay. Okay, the next policy is referencing homeschools, 6.202.
Ms. Hampton, I think this was pulled again just as part of the discussion on homeschool and the athletic issue.
Okay.
And I think there were several policies that were pulled just for that reason. The interscholastic athletes policy 4.301, and then also the open enrollment and magnet school policy 6.206. I think those were all pulled as part of the overall review of our homeschool and athletic piece.
Okay, and I think it would also detail policy 6.202 as transfers with the system. Do you think it would follow under the same category as well?
No, I'm not sure which policy you're talking about on transfers.
Policy 6.206, and it states transfers within the system. Like when a student transfers from one school to the next?
Yeah.
The standards that follows that.
Yeah, I think what we've done though is the 6.206, the one that's entitled transfers within the system. I think we have at Jackson-Madison County adopted the open enrollment policy, which is our 6.206, which is different from the TSBA policy entitled transfers within the system.
Okay.
I think the policy that you're looking at that says transfers within the system is the
Yes.
TSBA model policy for 6.206, and we've adopted an open enrollment policy instead of the TSBA model policy.
Okay. I'm just repeating it. So the TSBA model policy would take basically control over this particular 6.202 policy transfers within the system concerning open enrollment. Did I say that correctly?
I think what we've done, and somebody can correct me, but I think what we've done is instead of adopting the TSBA model policy 6.206 entitled transfers within the system, we have modified their model policy and adopted an open enrollment and magnet school policy, which is our 6.206.
Okay.
So we have rejected the TSBA model policy for our own policy, which is an open enrollment policy.
Okay. So we will no longer refer to TSBA model policy.
That would be my understanding. Correct. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what we've done.
Okay. Superintendent Washington, do you know at this time, or is it just kind of?
It's just kind of one of those things that I believe we have to adopt, and we have adopted our own open enrollment and magnet school policy because our actual policy does differ from the TSBA model policy. So we had adjusted to the way we do open enrollment in our magnet programs. And I know we talked about this as a staff at the beginning of this school year as it applies to Madison and Montessori and the Northeast Academy. All of them have different criteria for entry. Really the only one that has a criteria is the Academic Academy, because Madison and Montessori are truly just waitlist and open enroll. So we had to modify our policies to accommodate our situation. And early college has a criteria also. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, these particular policies, they will be adopted and updated further as we receive information upon this. And so at the next committee meeting, this particular policy would be addressed as well if any additional changes is needed or as we get more information pertaining to this particular policy. Kevin, is there anything that you wanted to say?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, this last policy is policy 6.403, and it strictly talks about student communicable diseases.
Yeah, that goes back to what we talked about before.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And so this particular policy would go back in line with what we have already addressed and see if there's something that we need to update or either, basically delete out. We would check with TSBA, I guess, if there's any additional information that they may have in regards to this particular policy that we could use under our local control policy if necessary. Do you have any questions, Kevin, as it relates to this?
I do not.
Okay. So is there anything else during this policy committee meeting that we need to address that we have not already addressed, Superintendent Washington?
No, thank you for hosting the meeting so that we're all aware that we will be adopting some sort of policy regarding a response to the pandemic at some point. We're just not ready to do that, and how we try to restore school and go forward, post-pandemic and during pandemic, given the forecast is that this could occur again. And so we just have to start preparing and looking at what models are out there as far as what we're going to do going forward. So this is going to be an ongoing and probably be updated many times after we do establish a policy. It'll probably get updated more than one time within the next 12 to 18 months as we continue to learn more and evolve more in this new normal that people are projecting.
Okay. Before we close out, Annette Wilson was online, and I would like to hear from her just to see if there's anything that she has heard that's new, that's concerning this pandemic. Um, I know she serves in that role, and so, Ms. Annette, if you're on, if there's anything that you would like to add or address at this time, we would like to hear it.
Ms. Hampton, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Washington pretty well addressed it. I know daily he is in contact with the health department. They reach out to me on a regular basis as needed. And I know that from what I've heard from the state, everybody's still just in that planning phase of starting to look and see how the school year will look when we do start. And I think a lot of that depends on the data and how the cases continue. Hopefully, we will continue on that downward slope. And there's not a lot at this time, even though I think plans are being made on the back end. It's just we're still waiting on the state and the local health department to give us guidance.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Annette.
Thank you.
Attorney Thomas, is there anything that you would like to say before we close out?
I think we've covered everything. Thank you.
Okay. Well, the policy committee is adjourned. And as I stated before, if you have any issues or concerns, please send out emails to your committee people. I am the chair. Kevin Alexander is a member, and Shannon Stewart is a member also. Also, feel free to contact our superintendent, Ray Washington, and he will be on hand just to assist with anything that we cannot handle. Okay, thank you all.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.